Okay, sometimes movies get really famous for something that's in it for a few seconds. So, like this movie called The Initiation, which doesn't really rate, but it's famous for all the murders that take place in a mall, but it's only a few minutes of the mall.
Yeah, I was the one writing the synopsis we'll cover today, and it's very tough synopsis because it's really like 3 different movies going on at once, and like trying to like put this film together, and then when you compare it to things like the poster and the title, and like it's almost impossible to quantify.
Yeah. So it happens a lot. There's a movie that's really famous for something that's only in there for a few seconds or whatever. It does happen. I know one of the movies is Madam Satan, which is the big dance, and it's only about 10 minutes of the movie, but that's what's most famous about. So we're going to talk about slasher film Under the Radar of 1980 film, 1984.
Yeah, join us for Kyle and Nick on Film as we break down The Initiation. Welcome back to the show. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from Goethe Film Reviews.
I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast, and if you're new, thanks for watching. If you've been the loyal viewer all this time, thank you again. Welcome back. Check out the Patreon for options. We do have some people that like to tell us what to do, and you get the opportunity to tell us what to do. Today, we're going to continue with our under the radar kind of slasher films, and I think we got a real good gem in this one, The Initiation.
Yes, definitely. So The Initiation is about Kelly Fairchild, who all her life has been plagued by a recurring nightmare in which a man is burning alive. Now, as a potential sorority member for Delta Rho Chi, she's been tasked with breaking into her father's business as part of an initiation hazing. And as she seems to be uncovering the secrets of that nightmare, the initiation is setting itself up to be quite the bloodbath.
So, one of the things that's interesting about this movie, and I kind of pitched it, this is, I think, the first time for you.
First time for me,
and I've seen this many times, is you look for, when you watch this movie, where's it going to go awful? Where it's going bad? And I kind of told them, I try to find where it's going to go bad, and it really doesn't. It has all the ingredients to be an awful movie.
It never goes bad, but it also never goes good. It just kind of rides that line, and that's maybe the film's biggest fault, is that I get the feeling I'm not going to remember this movie.
Yeah.
For very much longer, so I'm happy, we're getting the chance to talk about it before it leaves my memory. But the film is the only feature film from director Larry Stewart, who actually took over the role after Peter Crane left. He was falling behind on production like just a few weeks in. Okay. And he also was kind of giving it more of a European art house style.
It does look like two different movies.
Yeah, so he was replaced by Larry Stewart, who again only did television before and after this. And it's also interesting too in that it's written by Charles Pratt Jr. Charles Pratt Jr., who is basically exclusively known for soap operas. Yeah. And knowing that while watching the movie gives you every clue you need to know about how this movie's going to play out.
Like I said before, I didn't really say it to him, but I said to a lot of people when you watch Initiation, you will see somebody, a producer, saying, this is great soap opera writing. Just take the slasher movie out of it. Yep. And if you take the slashing out of it, it is a great soap opera movie.
Exactly, yeah.
So somebody's like, we need to hire this guy to write soaps for us.
Yep, exactly. And we got a nice little, legacy performance kind of thing with Vera Miles leading the cast from Psycho, of course. Then get Clu Gulager, who you put him in any movie for me, and I'm going to dig the heck out of Clu. I became aware of him on his son's film, Feast, in which he plays a bartender, and it's just kind of like he can kind of play that dad vibe, the bartender vibe, the hippie vibe. Like he can kind of clue into a whole like selection of performances, and I think again, like you put him in this movie, I'm going to enjoy when he's on screen.
So it has all the tropes of an 80s slasher movies. Obviously, girls taking showers. Obviously, a lot of girls, competing against each other. You have a swarmy girl. You have a nerdy girl. You have an action girl. So it's one of all those ingredients for a perfect mid-1984 kind of a slasher movie. Now, I lied to Kyle saying Dreamscape and Nightmare on Elm Street are only the movies that talk about dreams in horror movies. I lied. This one does too.
Well, that's probably because you forgot about it.
I did.
But I remember when I was looking over the time period of release, it was suspected that this film got overshadowed by Nightmare on Elm Street's success, and that's one of the many reasons it kind of never took off and became well known. And that's why it was years until I think it might have been Scream Factory or Arrow did like a Blu-ray release of the film where people started to actually see it more frequently. Of course, now I was able to find it on some streaming services, so like it's kind of percolating back in now.
Well, the poster is deceiving.
Well, that's the thing about it. The poster is phenomenal. Yeah. It just isn't about the movie at all.
Yeah, no, it's clickbait. Right.
Yeah, it's one of our early movie clickbait titles right
poster,
there.
Right. So that's one of the things that probably is whispered away is the poster doesn't really match. and the success of Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, and it's hard to compare the two because Nightmare on Elm Street does knock it out of the park so well that everything that you would compare with this film in terms of dreams just doesn't work.
And I will vouch to somebody, Nightmare on Elm Street is a soap opera too if you take out the slasher. There are some soap opera.
All horror movies, specifically slasher movies.
It's almost very much Days of Our Lives. If you guys remember that. So, yeah.
What else do we have? We have the first appearance of Daphne Zuniga, who we would later go to see in Spaceballs. What was the other thing that I always remember from The Fly 2? Because no one talks about The Fly 2.
Is that with Eric Stoltz?
Yeah, and so she appears in that film, and she's done some other work throughout her career too. But like this was like the big one where her first leading role for this film, because she was in I think The Dorm That Dripped Blood, where she played a very small kind of a character role, and this was her first major release. And I think she does fine in the role.
The intro, the beginning, is actually greatly shot. And you got the stunt work, and it's that slow moving dream sequence quality, and of course you're gonna Vaseline the lens on the hell out of it, or whatever they did to make it look like a soft.
I felt like they didn't cool down the set enough, and it just like fogged up the whole thing.
Fogged up. So it's very, but it, the edited slice and beginning of that movie is very effective still.
No, I agree. I think early on in the film, that's when it's most effective, and it's disappointing to me that when you do the slasher in a mall, it just takes too long to get there, and by the time it did, I kind of just ran out of steam on the movie. Like, I think if we had more that was to play with this nightmare sequence, and just more in general with the initiation. Like, I like the idea of, like, a slasher film set around a hazing ceremony, essentially.
It was really...
And, I mean, honestly, if you asked me to join your sorority, first of all, I'd say, hey, maybe I'm not the right kind for your sorority, but if you asked me to join your sorority by doing this thing, by breaking into my dad's business... I'd say you can go to hell. So I don't understand what's so important that her character, Kelly, needs to get into a sorority that bad that she's going to break into her father's, not just like a business, not just like a building, a shopping center.
With elevators and escalators. And all that. And that's one of the things that's kind of missed with me, because the initiation, you don't really convince that this is a necessity for her.
It feels like it's just like that's the only spot that they could film, and so that the film just takes a different turn. And it's like we lose all that hazing stuff as soon as we get to the shopping center, because it kind of feels like two separate movies. It feels like maybe they're heading towards a shopping mall or something like that.
The insane asylum, actually the asylum sequences are shot very effectively.
That's true, yeah.
I mean, you see the intensity and stuff, and then there's a little bit of a mystery. We always forget about. There's a little bit of tango of mystery of, well, what happened to her family that she's having these dreams and stuff like that.
Well, there's a number of mysteries, soap opera-y mysteries, and very much in fact. And I think if you can break them down to a couple things. I would say the reveals that take place, most of them worked for me. The major one that didn't was our killer reveal, and we won't spoil it for you here, but just it felt like something that, again, it felt like it was written for a soap opera, because it's a reveal that happens really late with no real explanation for why,
or the plausibility.
And then the plausibility factor is just like, oh, that's what we're doing. Oh, okay, and it's a very sour note on the end of the film. And if I weren't already kind of checked out at that point, that would make me go. Like, that's when I'm gone now. It's because there's no setup. I watched the film twice, and on the second viewing, I was looking for clues, kind of like trying to unravel the mystery early on. This felt like, what was the film? A Happy Birthday to Me, where they had written the twist like as they were about to shoot it. So there was no setup for it. There was nothing heading that way. It's just there.
Yeah, and that's the reveal is just there. But the kills are kind of fascinating.
The kills are definitely, I think they're cool, and they have kind of a cadence to them where there's a little bit in the middle where we kind of lose some of that action piece, where we're kind of like, we're out of the initiation story, but we're not into the shopping center part of the story, and we're kind of wondering where we are.
Yeah.
That part sags a little bit, but there is some like tentative action to the horror of the film. If they had just ramped up a better story and a better reasonability between these two like halves of the film, I think it would have worked.
Yeah, because you get a lot of play in the mall where like, did you see somebody there? I don't know. And then is that the bad guy, or is that the kids goofing off, or something like that? One of the best kills is one thing that's not really gory. I like the one where she gets dragged back into the cargo elevator. I love that.
Okay, yeah.
No!
There is a significant lack of blood in the film, and not in a bad way. I don't think films have to be bloody, gory messes to be a good horror film. This kind of feels very much like if you didn't have the
very
sex scenes, you could have. This could be a good introductory horror film.
I think if you didn't have the nudity scenes, you could have passed for a PG-13 for this.
Yeah, and I'm always kind of like looking for that, because there needs to be some, entryway horror. And I think that we went through a period in the mid 2000s where everything R-rated was cut out so that we could try and sell it to a bigger audience, and that was almost like overkill, where we lost all of our hardness in horror. And now in the 2010s, we've kind of gone more towards the R and a little bit less towards the PG-13, and there needs to be a good balance. There needs to be interplay between family-friendly horror, PG-13 accessibility horror, and then that hard R stuff. And I think this film kind of veers towards PG-13, where it would have been, I think, more successful had they not gone for it all, because they don't go for it the entire movie.
No, you're right, and that's one of the things that gets stuck in a pocket that can't get it out. And like I said, it's not an awful movie. It never really dives down awful where you laugh at and that's stupid, even though there's some silliness to it. But it never really goes phenomenal either.
Yeah,
and it's could have been PG-13 for a lot of those teenage girls to enjoy and watch, and teenage kids to go watch together. But it goes to that shower scene and then the nudity scene and what's going on in the mall to make it go back to R. So it's kind of the needle doesn't really fit anywhere where you can sell it and market it.
Yeah, exactly. And as I watched the film, I forgot about most of the R-rated stuff. I forgot about the blood in the movie. I forgot about the nudity that was going on until it would happen. I'd be like, oh yeah, it's an R movie, and then it would disappear, and I'd be like, oh, it's PG-13. It'd be like, it makes you feel like you're watching a more clean-cut, accessible.
Yeah, there we go. That's the word I was going to say. It's a little more cleaner, a little more nicer, a little more soapy.
Yeah, and it wasn't until rewatch when I was like, oh, I can't show this to the kids. Well, I'm constantly looking for horror that I can use to introduce. One of my godchildren is always asking, when can we watch horror movies? And I'm like, you're 4. So it's like you're not there yet, but I know you want to, and I'm always looking for trying to how do I bring him into the horror realm? Because I was 4 years old when I was introduced to Halloween, so I know that it's possible, but it's how do you angle in there?
Right. Yeah. So I do like the movie. I've seen it many times before, but you're right. There's certain it's not memorable and it's not unforgettable.
I want that poster. That's the funny thing about it is I would put that poster. I've got a hallway outside of our recording studio where I'm prepping to put some really nice posters, some favorites up there. And this is one that I could almost, if the movie was better, I would put this poster up because it's such a great poster, but it has nothing to do with the movie. And I think it reminds me of another movie I watched last week called The Mutilator, which is, it's not a very good movie.
What a title. Of course.
It's not a very good movie, but then I can also see why people like it. I can see why it has that cult following.
Okay.
But I don't, in the case of this one, I don't like this movie. Whereas in the case of The Mutilator, I still felt like there was enough there that was bad that makes it memorable as much as the good stuff did. Whereas this one, I agree, I wanted to like it more, but I'm going to forget this movie.
Probably why I like because I forget that I've seen it. And it's like, oh, that's right.
It's like a new experience every time.
Experience, right. I forgot about it. Yeah. And then you got the nostalgia, that's what the malls used to look like. Yeah, we have plants everywhere, so it's almost like a nostalgia piece.
See, we'll be watching this movie in our 70s. It's that movie that we'll be watching again, going wow, this is great.
Nobody ever talks about it.
It's that movie that's the kid that helps you cross the street. Don't worry, we'll get across, Grandpa. That's the movie we'll be watching decades from now as the initiation.
Even though I do like the movie, and I know I'm ashamed of it, and I know you don't like it, but what doesn't really work for me is the dream subplot. It just doesn't bind.
So that twist didn't work for you?
No, it just feels cringy almost.
See,
and the professor, and it's almost like he almost has an infatuation for Kelly Fairchild in the movie. It just doesn't work, and there's this big exposition dump throughout the whole process.
Fair enough. Well, so let's dive into this real quick. So you don't like the subplot? Do you like the reveal, or do you not like any of that?
I think the reveal is silly.
Okay.
And I think that's probably wasn't intentionally supposed to be silly. I thought it was supposed to be a big shock and oh my god, it's been like that the whole time and never knew. But it plays almost like a parody of itself.
Fair enough. Because I'll admit the subplot is a little bit ooky, where it's it is kind of I know he's not a professor per se, but he has kind of got this infatuation with a student, and he's kind of taking advantage of her mentally. Right. To use her, and she seems fine with it, but it's that's kind of weird still.
You're using it as an experiment.
Whereas the reveal itself, I thought, worked because I felt the movie was supposed to be silly. I felt that kind of again, with the clean cut, with the non-hard R-ness that it is, I thought it was kind of reaching towards something a little goofier. And the only problem with the reveal that takes place is that there's no reckoning. Like, the characters don't have to come to terms with it. It's just a reveal, and then we move on.
Yeah, it's just like,
that's
cut.
maybe my
What?
big problem.
I know.
Yeah.
Cut. The end.
And then, of course, with the end of the killer's reveal, too, is another thing we're getting, like, introduced, but there's no reckoning. It reminds me a complete 180, by the way. It reminded me of Vera Miles' other film, Psycho, where there's a big killer reveal at the end of the movie, but then there is literally almost to the nth degree an explanation for what's going on.
An exposition dump.
There's it's like a 6-minute scene, one shot that tells you everything you need to know about Psycho if you haven't figured it out yet. Whereas this film is kind of the opposite. There's a reveal, there's an ending, and the movie just goes, end credits. There's no reckoning at all. There's no denouement. There's no real coming down off that reveal.
Oh, what are we going to do after the big reveal? Because there's something has to happen.
And something has to be explained.
You have to explain what the heck going on. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to think, okay, because we talk about the asylum, that's in play, but still, what the hell?
Yeah.
Right. And I think what works for it is, I don't think it takes itself serious. It's very soapy. Even in the beginning where the dad's on fire, it's like a good stunt. It's really good stunts inside, but you have this glossy feel of very clean almost. You could make this a TV movie almost. Yeah.
Yeah, so, the soapiness is on display, and I knew that watching the film for the second time. I was like, I can see the soap opera. I can see Days of Our Lives, General Hospital. I got the whole thing.
Like I said, some producer watched this movie we have to hire this guy.
Yeah, and Charles Pratt Jr. has been prolific. Hundreds of episodes across multiple soap operas. The guy knows how to soap. And I think I think this is a definite.
I'm not laughing. It's good writing. It's hard.
He does the work that needs to be done, and I think he understood the assignment for what he was doing for soap operas. It's just in this film, I don't know if he understood the assignment.
Right. Yes. I think he found where he's supposed to be going, and somebody recruited him, and somebody had to be watching that movie and said, "We need him for this."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone was watching it on TV when they cut everything out. They were like, "Hire this man."
And I'm not gonna. It's just. I'm laughing at the reveal that somebody watched a slasher movie and said, this guy's not good for slasher movies. He's good for soap operas.
Yeah, you gotta wonder, because he had a couple credits before this. Did they call him based on those credits for soap operas, or did they call him on this movie? I don't know. I'm just saying it's an option. They probably saw it all. But
right. Yeah.
But yeah, overall, the film, I can see why people developed a cult following. I can see why it is.
And you can see why it got missed
later. Yeah, and I can also see why it has been forgotten. And for me, it just didn't work overall. There's bits and pieces here that work, that had they been used better, had they been developed more, and had they had that extra punch, I would have really felt something driving towards the film. But when it ends, I was like, missed opportunity is maybe the best way.
And like I said, when I watch it, I'm like, where are you going to go really awful, but really like a bad movie? And it really doesn't do that. Or where are you going to go that's really phenomenal and punch it out? It really doesn't do that. It just stays the course.
Yep.
Yeah. So, have you seen The Initiation?
Yeah, let us know your comments down below. I would say let us know your favorite Larry Stewart film, but he only made this one movie and did a lot of TV afterwards. So hey, what's your favorite TV show he directed? Mine's The Incredible Hulk.
I don't even think the mall is still around here.
I don't think so. It doesn't seem like this film kind of, again...
Everything about it
they forgot where the mall was. Let us know your thoughts on the film down below, and your thoughts on the different horror films we talked about this month. We always love this kind of time of year because we get to just indulge in the things that we love most, which is murder and mayhem.
But if you remembered a movie and you want us to talk about it that we've probably forgotten, or you've forgotten and want us to talk about it,
that's true. Yeah, I'm taking part in that Letterboxd contest, 100 horror films in 92 days. So if you have options, let me know, because they have to all be new movies I've never seen before. So that's a tougher order when you
that's
horror fanatic.
Challenge them, right?
Challenge accepted here. Yeah. And then once again, make sure to check out that Patreon down below. You can be like our patrons, like Brian Eggert, for example, people who have given to the show and get to have their own Patreon selected episodes, get to be a part of the team where they get to have more say in what we get to do. Check out the link down in the description. We have Patreon tiers as low as $1 a month, but you can go as high as $5 or $10 a month, and then you get to really get your hands dirty in helping us pick the different films that we get to talk about here on the show.
Yeah, get dirty or get soapy, whatever, we don't care.
Yeah, soap it up with Charles Pratt Jr. and The Initiation and all the people here. But until next time, I'm Kyle Goethe, and you can find all my film reviews on goatfilmreviews.com.
I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast, a podcast where you can find everywhere you find podcasts where I interview local independent filmmakers from around the Twin Cities area.